is day 9 of my 33 Days Metamorphosis video series. And I have special guest again, Raphael.
And I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for
Raphael,
having me.
You're welcome.
And we have another guest here. Is he on camera?
Not really. Coda. He's occupied in the moment. He might join us at some point. Can we?
Oh.
You can kind of see his head, I think. There he is.
What's that, Coda? What's that?
The dogs don't cooperate as much, do they? So Raphael was here, I believe, a few days ago, and we talked about divine connection and connection with guides, and a more personal base to that. And we couldn't get more personal than relationships. And that, obviously romantic relationships, but also birth family and friendships. And this, of course, has been coming up a lot for people in Ascension. It's usually when we get contacted by people for sessions, it's what they're leading with is pain over their relationship that they're currently in, not being satisfied in it, or just feeling like it's running out of ground. So I really wanted to, even if you're not in a romantic relationship right now, you could take this in for your own healing related to relationships that you've been in the past and relationships you want to be in the future.
Right.
So I feel like it applies to all of the nows, But certainly if you are currently in a relationship and you're feeling some rumblings, I'm hoping that what we talk about today will support you now in navigating that. So Raphael and I come from this perspective of almost 10 years in sacred union together, navigating it together, every moment together. So we've learned a lot and been through a lot, and this is the place that we come from in offering this to you. So, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I've always, deeper relationship has always been a deep heart cry and theme. In my teen years, going out for coffee with a friend, I wanted to, let's get below the surface and talk about what's real. And I just feel there's so much to this day that lives in me as that desire, and I've realized such a big piece of that in our bond and in our close-knit community that to me is just so out of this world, and sometimes I cocoon in and protect it because it feels so out of this world, and today we're sharing it as part of putting it in this world. And there's a way that we don't own it either, that it's something we participate in and it's owned in the collective. So it's treasured and cocooned, and yet today we're sharing it out there with all of you, hoping to transmit a feeling tone of it and awaken others' desires to have what we have.
Yes, that's definitely an aspect of it, is awakening the desires. So you felt a conscious ache for intimacy and depth. Can you say more about what that felt like?
Yeah, there was...
Before you even had it.
It was an innate feeling that, like an appetite, a deep appetite that I couldn't be satisfied with something shallow. Hanging out with a few friends, met an initial need, but immediately there was something empty about it. What's really going on for you? What's it really like to be you in your skin? And a close friendship was meaningful, but then romance takes it way up into another range of intimacy. So it was something that I really felt like an appetite I couldn't live without.
Right.
That I needed it in order to heal, in order to feel, in order to be alive.
So even before you had it, you had this feeling that you needed it. I'm trying to obviously bring that out a bit because I feel like that's where many people probably are. that they don't have it yet. They have maybe something else, a different kind of intimacy, or they're not in anything right now. But there's something, I think what you're speaking to is something that lives in us, that's spring-loaded toward sacred union. Do you feel that too?
Yes, and of course as we teach so much about it's about a union with self, with our parts of ourselves that naturally births into wanting to be mirrored in relationship with other. But yes, this ache for something deeply more, for something that's blissful and alive. I haven't been single that many years in my adult life, but when I was, 10 years ago, there was a letting go of something and a letting in of something, letting go of old frequencies of what I had known up until that point, and knowing that there was something so much more, and I could feel in tone travel to it and feel it in my heart. I could find a couple of sources that spoke about it and let that help that resonance stir. But oh my God, it was like a possession of wanting something that I knew was available, that I knew I was meant to participate in, and that I was meant to pursue, and put it very, very high on my list of what life is.
I think when you say pursue, there's like this energy to that. That's a willingness to be with your passion and with your desire, and a willingness to bake in it. And I was very similar. I had very active fantasies, etheric journeys with my mate, which ended up being you. But I had a very visceral feeling, like even to get personal here, after masturbation, I would feel this man's energy holding me. I would feel held. I would have afterglow conversations, and it ended up being you, or it was your energy. It was what I wanted, and so I energized it, and then it came.
Yes.
So there is something really critical about this wanting, and the pursuing of the wanting. Not even pursuing a person necessarily. Sometimes the pursuing shows up in leaving what's not what you really want. And I want you to talk about that, because you also just recently wrote so beautifully, I had lots of tears, about your completion with your first marriage. So would you, in your, I just want to say, in Raphael's Journey to the Demiurge journaling series, we'll put the link in the description. He's really going through his previous timeline. It's like another timeline. And their previous marriage and commitment to Christianity and walking that out.
Yeah, that was a big piece for me to digest. I felt my guides asking me to share my story, and to feel how our stories are these propulsion vehicles that are, when we feel them, they take us into our next places. And there was another round of feeling my own story, and a big piece centers around leaving a 23-year marriage that wasn't a crisis of an external crisis of an affair or some inability to be together. It was something much more subtle of feeling the ground beneath us that had carried us for significant movements and significant period of time.
23 years.
23 years. How that had completed, and that there was now goodwill. In my case, it had come to a place of being kind of a goodwill bond and a brotherly, sisterly kind of cooperation with a bit of sexuality, but a very tame as far as desire and passions going. And so to feel that there was love there and goodwill, but then there wasn't romantic passion. There was different defenses in place and differences that had come up to the surface. But to honor it by leaving it, to honor the person by saying, I won't be in a falseness with you any longer. If we want to go into the obvious next phase of our relationship, which is we're seeing what might arise on healthy ground that obviously is no longer romantic, I'm open to that. My heart is open to that, to honor what we've had. But to also honor what we've had by letting go of what's here in the moment.
I want to go back to this moment that you share in that writing, where you're on a camping trip and you're not with your wife then, and your friends go away, and you just drop into, I think you really dropped into parts too, and how they would feel about leaving this marriage.
Right. A couple of months prior to actually sitting down with my first wife and saying I'm no longer willing to be in our marriage bond, I was out on, it was actually a day hike with a group of friends, and I got invited, and it was quite a very beautiful setting, and we got up early, and the group had big ambitions, and when we stopped for lunch in a very beautiful wilderness campground, the group had ambitions to go on for another several hours and come back in the direction we came later, and I knew it was my opportunity. I could feel things brewing and rumbling in my heart for really on a rising way for months prior. But I knew I had something deep to feel out in the wilderness that day as we were hiking the several hours to get to this first wilderness campground. And I let the group go on ahead and saw my opportunity to claim an empty wilderness campground, pick my site, and be surrounded by these beautiful tall evergreen trees, and roll out my mat and just feel and let in this choice point that I knew needed to be solemnly made inside of myself. It was a moment that I needed to be able to mark it in time, mark it in my heart, and feel all there was to feel. And it didn't take but a few moments of laying down and a gush of deep, deep tears of letting go came in, and just a cascade of feelings of what will my family think, what will my daughters think, how will my ex-wife respond, how will, oh my God, I'm choosing the unthinkable. I'm having had such a deep conviction most of my married life that would be the last thing that would ever happen to me, because it was based on my character and my choice and not on my feelings. Right. So it was a big shift of belief system, value system, as well as letting go of Christianity at the same time. That was, so
I'm mostly struck by how you were just willing to feel it, to just be with it. And I've been working with women for quite a few years, and one thing I notice, and I don't want to generalize, is that so often it's the woman that feels the ache and wants to change, and is growing and is awakening, and the male partner is slower or not awakening whatsoever, and parts are being actually quite stubborn about, I'm not going to change. This is who I am. I'm not changing. And so I particularly wanted you to share, because in this case, you're leading, as a man, the completion of the relationship. And this is something that maybe women watching this that feel this is coming for them, that they will have to lead it. They will almost have to take on a bit of masculine to be able to, and I've done it myself. With my previous marriage, I was the one leading it, and other relationships too, in most cases. But in this case, you were awakening to the what wasn't working, and there was a soul awakening element to this. Your soul was definitely moving into a different gear.
Which is so true for so many people in the audience right now, is that the ground that you met on has shifted and changed inside of each of you personally.
Yes.
So the shared ground is narrowed, the resonance ground is narrowed.
I really love the word ground, right? Because like right now, you and I, what Raphael and I discover, I think I can speak for you, is that our ground keeps widening and deepening, and somehow we get closer, but yet our ground expands. Yes. And this is partly why sacred unions come together in the first place, of course, is to serve love. So that there's this overflow, and so your territory gets bigger and bigger. If it's a sacred union, if you're growing together. If you're not, then exactly what you're saying, it narrows and narrows and narrows until it pops you out. It's meant to pop you out.
It's kind of like two overlapping big circles, and when we meet each other, there's a lot of overlap in coupleships.
And that could be formed by codependence and
all of the above.
Karma and goodness.
Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah.
And then as things change, the circles spread apart, so the overlapping area is that much smaller. And that can breathe in and out and come back together and do all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But in my case, it was the leaving Christianity part. We were totally immersed in, our beginning was totally immersed in a belief system and value system that I was due this life to let go of. It's interesting though, my ex-wife, in our unfolding relationship, there was little contact, and that's faded to no contact. But one thing she said to me, and this stands out because there were so few things said,
Right.
is she said that, I know it was unthinkable for you to choose to leave, and this was a couple of years later, but she said, I have grown immensely since being out of our bond, and it was her way of thanking me for doing the impossible. And that I'm sure another part of her at the time felt I had put her through hell.
Thank you for bringing that up, because so often what's happening here in the dynamic is one part caretaking another part.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many parts connections going on in 3D relationships. There's so often like an inner mother and a little child, and an inner child and a man. There's a man, the father and the man, and a little daughter and a woman. But it's often what I hear from women is this. But it's going to hurt him. I'm going to hurt him.
Okay.
Really, they're talking about. So that's their inner mother, really, talking about the inner child and the man that they're taking care of. This son. So how much does he get to grow? If he's being taken care of by a mother energy, how much do you get to grow if you're being taken care of by a father energy? This is the other thing. So not only does the ground narrow, the ceiling lowers. And on growth.
And then
so it's like getting narrow and then the ceiling, like that's not a pleasant, that's not a
And all boys go through a healthy stage of needing to push away mom. So if their mate is energizing mom energy, there's this push
but yet
pull.
they
I
want,
need mommy.
Yes.
I don't want mommy.
And you know what goes with that usually is the lack of sexuality in the bond and real lust and juicy sexuality where you're like want each other.
Yes. You mentioned
like we have this. You're in our bedroom right now, and maybe you can feel the energies. It's not a cold bedroom; it's warm, with desire.
You mentioned being personal. Mentioned masturbation and using that as an opportunity to dial into. And when I feel men's, what's the number one thing out there in 3D that men are obsessed with and struck by is pornography.
Yes.
But the why that is because porn taps into our deepest ache for a mate and our deepest ache to return to source.
Yes.
The breasts and the yoni are all about portals into connection with source and the divine, and the
divine feminine.
But then 3D goes and messes it all up, and men can hardly, spend 2 minutes there, and can't be with an actual mate, need to be with the stand-in mate in a digitized version.
And then there's all of this punisher shame, like I've been talking about the inner punisher that comes in, where they feel bad for even wanting it. But don't they want it because the sexuality has been so neutered in the marriage?
Right. And when the reality of it is that porn, if it's an addiction, is pointing to something very real about you. Life wants to give you a hard-on for love and life itself, that just flows into a passionate claim of a woman, one woman, that you're meant to be with. And there's a beautiful way in that you get to be with all womankind.
Yes.
And you can let go of the space, of the placeholder in pornography when you get to have the woman of your dreams.
I don't think do you even think of porn? Do you even...
As a man, when I see it, it hits a charge point in me. So yeah, when I come across it, it's like... Well,
but you don't seek it out?
No, it's dropped away as an interest or something.
And you told me that you see me
Yeah.
or feel me, and that's.
And then there's this thing
That's
about
wonderful.
men wanting, it's like one woman. If you really enter a bond with one woman, there is a way that you're bonded with all women, and your eyes are not on all women. You see women and you can energize appreciation and, whoa, she's beautiful, and even energize it without it being slimy.
Mm-hmm.
But you know where your home portal is. I know where my home portal is in our usness.
Home portal, yes.
And in you.
Yeah.
And
Raphael actually so helps me if I've been meeting with a lot of women in session space, and there's a lot that we've been moving through, especially around abuse frequencies, which is just, so big in our souls, sexual abuse and other kinds of abuse. And I'm just sort of backed up with all of this energy around this that I'm transmuting through my heart. It's maybe pushing up something for me. And then being with Raphael, emotionally, mentally, physically, all of those areas helps move this energy out. You actually have often felt, well, I just moved something for the collective of women. You help me be a channel of divine feminine, but your masculine helped to move it. It's a beautiful exchange that happens there.
Very present in our physical bodies and in our usness, and the sheer pleasure of the moment, and then there's feeling these other dimensions as being equally a part of it at the same time.
And the collective.
And
sometimes, I'll have an orgasm and then I'll burst into tears. And I'll feel how, wait, this isn't even mine. This is maybe somebody I met with this week, or this is just the cry and ache of women that my pleasure is meeting that ache and helping it move. So this is also what starts happening, like I was saying, in a sacred union, a true sacred union, which in our definition in SoulFullHeart is transactability on all grounds. So a very active and lush and beautiful sexual life. If you're not having sex or making love regularly and with a lot of passion, it's not a sacred union. It's something else, sacred friendship, brother, sister, something else.
It's a relationship.
It's a relationship, but it's not a marriage or a sacred union.
It feels important to how we name these
things, to
come to terms with.
And I'm saying it so...
Society may call it something.
I'm saying it so directly because I know for those of you that are in this place of what am I going to do here if this relationship feels done, I want to help you have a criteria that resonates with you, with your heart and soul, coming from a place of someone who has lived in these grounds. That's where I'm advocating from. So the body part is key. You get to have that. All that pleasure, you get to have it. And the other thing is the mental capacities and transactability. So you think alike, you talk alike. I couldn't even calculate how many hours we have spent talking. Just talking. And the soul resonance is really big. That's the piece of we're going in the same direction here. We're feeling the same things. We're both interested in star beings. Wow, we're both interested in disclosure. We're both interested in parts. We're both, we both want to serve. We both want a community. The resonance just keep adding up when the souls are aligned. And all of these meta-soul pairings that we have together. What's another one? Heart.
Yes.
What do you say about the heart for a sacred union?
The heart is the deepest core of it, and feeling heart transact, feeling the willingness to be vulnerable. One of the first vulnerabilities I ever experienced with you was to call you up and ask you if I could talk with you, that I had something to share.
Yeah.
And it was a willingness. What I had to share was that I have an attraction to you. And to the willingness to hear no or to be hurt comes from a heart that's open, and a heart that's not open is a heart that's got a big shield out in front of it. So then there's transaction going on, but
no
it's not
vulnerability.
There's no vulnerability.
Right.
There's no ability to experience deep need, deep hurt. deep desire is all screened out into a much lower frequency bandwidth.
So these heart, body, soul, mind, it can be difficult to even imagine that this could all be in a relationship and with one soul. And I want to, something that's been brought up too, I want to say that I don't have personal experience with same-sex relationships, a woman and a woman and a man and a man. We're certainly very open to that. These sacred union grounds could transact in that kind of relationship. We're not close to that. We just can't speak to it. We'd love to work with people in SoulFullHeart that orient that way and see where that goes. So there's no closed off. We speak of feminine and masculine because we know it. And we live it, and it's yummy.
Yeah, it's a polarity dance that my masculine and feminine gets to dance with your masculine and feminine, and so if that happens in a same-sex couple, how cool.
It's not even so much about the physical body in that case or what your gender is as much as it is the parts. There's times where I told you I feel like I'm with a woman, where you're so open-hearted or so feminine in that moment, so tuned in to me that I feel like I'm in a relationship with a woman. So that's like the best of all worlds in some ways.
And vice versa.
Yeah. Because I have my masculine's pretty cool. Get to dance with him. So. This is what the parts work opens up. Really, we could bring all of this back to parts work. I want to. Because that was something you didn't have in your previous marriage. I didn't have in mine. And I feel makes a huge difference in navigating. When we say transactability in all these domains, I can't help but say because of parts work. Because both people, both partners are engaged in this inner exploration of the different energies that are inside.
That was so immense to begin to feel the hookups in my previous marriage. And all of our parts are going to be at play in any relationship we have. And it's not a mark of codependency because we have an inner child seeking to get a need met. Right. Where the codependency comes in is when there's no conscious awareness of what's happening in the bond. So at times I could feel my inner child really reactive to not getting a need met. And I could be with that, and I could even speak to it and bring it out into the space of our relationship and talk about it. Or an inner punisher really activated by a circumstance. So
we could go
those
on.
Dynamics.
We could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
I think I'll stop here. I'll pause us here.
Yeah. And
I may even have you come back in this 33 days to talk more about this.
Okay.
For sure. It feels like we just start the tip of the iceberg here. So I hope this moves something in you and is activating something and also pushes up some new desires and possibilities.
And so want you to live into your deepening, ongoing, infinite potential. It's a gift to us to experience you making similar choices for what you know is your next step. And the courage and the joy, radiance, we want to share it with you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for having me. Thank you for joining me on day 9. Bye for now. Bye.